Hi, welcome back to my channel. For today's mini deep dive, I will be looking at the lives of two brothers, Phinehas and Hophni. These are the two evil sons of Eli, and we come across them in 1 Samuel. Now, the passage that I'll be specifically looking at is from 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12 to 15. Now, this passage shows us how, when they would be boiling the meat to offer to God, the priest servants would come with a three-pronged fork and they would dip it in, and whichever meat the fork pulled out, they considered that to be their offering or their portion. And we will see how this was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Okay, but before that, let's go back and let's do a recap of who they are and their family line. So let's see. Phinehas and Hophni, as I said, they are the sons of Eli. They were Levites, and they were specifically from the priestly family line of Aaron. And at this moment, when this passage is written, they were serving at Shiloh. Now recall that Jacob had 12 sons, and one of these sons was called Levi. Levi's descendants were designated priests. Moses and his big brother Aaron were Levites, but it was Aaron who God designated to be his high priest. Aaron had 4 sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Itamar. The first two, Nadab and Abihu, they died due to their wickedness, and the remaining 2 continued the family line. Now remember, all high priests are Levites, but not all Levites could be high priests. They had to specifically be from the Aaronic line. This is an important factor, and this will be significant even as we go through the New Testament. And even if we look outside the events of the Bible, we see that the Maccabean revolt is a direct result of this as well. Now, as I said, the particular passage that we'll be looking at is from 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12 to 15. And this is what it says. Eli's sons were scoundrels. They had no regard for the law. Now it was practice of the priests that whenever any of the people offered a sacrifice, the priest servants would come with a 3-pronged fork in his hand while the meat was being boiled, and would plunge the fork into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. Whatever the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is how they treated all the Israelites who came to Shiloh. But even before the fat was burned, the priest servants would come and say to the person who was sacrificing, "Give the priest some meat to roast. He won't accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." That's from the NIV. And at the top of this, the passage reads, Eli's wicked sons. That's the title. Immediately then, after that title, we're told this story. And there's a lot of emphasis on this story, but by how much space is given to it. Now remember, Eli's sons, they also practice other evil deeds. For example, they were sleeping with the women who were at the entrance at the tent of the meeting. Excuse me. But it is this act that really burns the heart of God. So then we say, okay, why is this so? And then we will recall, if you're doing the Bible in the ear, you will recall that a lot of time has been spent by God explaining the kind of offerings that it was acceptable to him. We see this in Exodus chapter 29, Leviticus 7 and 8, and also in Numbers chapter 18. And it explains God had established which portions belonged to him and which portions belonged to the priest, even how these portions were supposed to be offered, whether it was to be roasted over open fire. But God, Yahweh, was quite specific in how he wanted these offerings presented. But Hophni and Phinehas, they were deliberately disregarding those regulations, and they were corrupting the act of the worship itself. And now this has huge consequences, not just in this chapter as we will read next, but also in their line to come. You will then see, if you continue to read through the books of the Bible, in when David comes in as king, then he removes this line and he puts in Zadok. Zadok is from the other line. I will also try and put it on here. In the same chapter, we read in verse 34, and this is what God says. "And what happens to your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, will be assigned to you. They will both die on the same day. I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what is in my heart and mind. I will firmly establish his priestly house, and they will minister before my anointed one always. Then everyone left in your family line will come and bow down before him for a piece of silver and a loaf of bread and plead, 'Appoint me to some priestly office so I can have food to eat.'" And this is actually what happened on the same day. Phinehas and Hophni were killed when they took the ark. The ark was captured by the Philistines. And we will see that because of this, the disgraced descendants of Eli's family, the Aaronic family line really, they were begging for priestly employment as we go down through the books. And this short passage, it reminds us that we need to give the best to Christ. We need to give the best to our Lord. Let's not play lucky dip and take the, as we Fijians say, the wuro. The wuro belongs to God. It doesn't belong to you. But they were playing a lucky dip by dipping their throngs in and taking out whatever would come out. Now that's all that I have today. I hope that it encourages you in your journey as you study the Bible, and you find reading the Bible really enjoyable as you piece the pieces together, and then you see a common thread that's running through. Thank you. If you have